Are we diving yet, Ben?
We can dive.
Oh, we're diving.
Dive. Oh. So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, did you see the Masters of the Universe trailer?
I fucking did, sir. And my body is ready.
Yeah.
My body is ready.
See, I not that content-wise it's anything like it, but animation-wise, I know it's the same people that did Castlevania. And I didn't really get into that show. I tried to watch it, and it's not my thing. But the animation looks good. I have known about this on the horizon because I occasionally listen to some of the Kevin Smith podcasts.
Yeah, I've known about it for about 2 years now.
Some of the Kevin Smith podcasts, and he's dropped hints of things as he was allowed to. I'm not a huge fan of Mark Hamill kind of using a very Joker-y sounding Skeletor voice, but maybe it was just an isolated because he didn't say much in that.
Yeah, it's just no. You're just.
I'm a little nervous. It's going to be a little too Joker reminiscent.
Bring me your champion.
And maybe it won't be.
Yeah.
I'm hoping he uses a slight. I know that it's like a really kind of like Invincible. It's got a really impressive cast of. I couldn't name you who is on it. Maybe you know. But I know it's got a lot of big voice actors in it.
It looks fantastic.
I just want to know who Jay Muse is.
I hope he's Orko. I really fucking hope. I know he's not. They look like they made Orko serious. So.
I think they fixed a lot of that dummy, obnoxious shit with Orko.
Yeah.
I think it looks fantastic. I know that it's going to be like story driven, and it's fucking Kevin Smith, so it's going to be like dialogue heavy. Obviously, it's got to be. I would have liked, and again, this is a trailer, so who knows what we're seeing, but maybe have fleshed out Eternia a little more, where it's not just a wasteland with a castle here and a castle there.
Maybe they do. They just kind of
it looked like in the shots there were a lot of clips, a lot of cuts. It looked like mostly just flat backgrounds with a little bit of topography. Not. It looked like a lot of remote, desolate.
It's weird that a lot of those shows, a lot of the shows at that time were planets in disrepair,
like Thundercats,
that He-Man, Transformers. Our planet is dying. We need to do something about this.
Transformers was on Earth, wasn't it?
No, but their planet Cybertron was dying, which is why they left Earth.
Yeah, but
they left for Earth.
But it wasn't. But my point is when you're watching the show, it'd be nice to have a little more than just a flat horizon line in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. It's funny. It's just I'm thinking to myself. I'm like, I don't even remember how fucking He-Man ended.
It sounds like it's picking up from that.
It is.
They're honoring all the storylines.
I'm like,
whatever storyline it was.
I'm not. I can't go back and watch. I watched a 5-minute clip yesterday. No.
Maybe they'll do it previously on He-Man.
They have to, because I watched a 5-minute clip of He-Man the other day. We watched it with the wife, and she's like, "Oh, well, what did He-Man look like?" And I was like, "Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen it." So we just pulled up a clip, and I went, "I can't sit through this."
Yeah,
I can't sit through this.
See, back in the day, I couldn't either because I was a little too old for that.
Yeah,
I was
and I was just a tad bit.
That and G.I. Joe were around the same time, and I remember them always being on in the afternoons, 4 o'clock or whatever. And I would watch G.I. Joe more often than I would watch. And I guess Transformers was also the same time. But it was all kind of that. It was that toy boom period right there. G.I. Joe, Transformers.
Yeah, all between 80 and 85. Yeah.
Yeah. Of all of them, I watched G.I. Joe more, but yeah. He-Man really wasn't my jam at all back then. I could appreciate it. I can appreciate it now. What it was?
Because if you took away all the weapons, it was just gay porn.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that fucking haircut when he's Adam, that page boy thing,
buddy,
and his pink vest over a white long sleeve shirt.
They weren't pretending anything back in those days.
Yeah. And his scaredy cat that he used to ride on.
Oh yeah,
kind of had a
Cringer
sissy voice. But
maybe that's Jason Mewes.
Maybe. Roar. It looks.
I would be down for that.
It looks really good. I'll check it out. But again, I was never a He-Man fan, so hopefully Kevin Smith has kind of put that down.
No, because there was something else I wanted to talk to you about, so I had to pull up Superhero Hype to get to it. I'm trying to, before we get into Meat and Bones, which by the way is going to be Loki, because Loki premiered this week.
Yeah, but that'll be in the title and everything. You don't need to tell me.
Yeah, there was. Oh, no.
So anyway, fucking let's finish this first.
Yeah, I'm listening. I guess I can't find it.
So yeah, I was never into the original. So, but this looks interesting. I'll watch it. I don't know how many episodes it is. I don't know how long the episodes are. I don't know any of that. But I'll check it out when it comes out. I'm not. It's funny. I'm more of a fan of Kevin Smith than his work. Like, I enjoy listening to him. I enjoy listening to him podcast and to his like speaking stuff. But I still think his movies are mediocre at best.
And I'm the perfect age to be a Kevin Smith fan, because everything he made was made in a time where like.
No, I was old enough to. I wasn't like.
But like Mallrats, Clerks, all that shit. As I discovered it and everything, like me and my friends. Oh my god, just.
Yeah, it was cool. I just as movies, they're not like.
Oh, they're not.
They're not very competent. Like he doesn't.
But he doesn't pretend that
a lot of them aren't. His stuff has tremendous memorable moments, which is why he's still a thing 30 years later. But his movies don't end competently, really. He has a problem closing movies, I think, a lot. I think the movie I like best from him is Red State, which is his most straightforward, like, normal movie, you know?
Yeah.
That and Cop Out, the two that aren't, like, in his verse, his universe.
Red State almost didn't end that way, though.
Yeah, well, whatever. But I like that movie from beginning to end.
I only like,
and Cop Out is like, if you haven't seen Cop Out, it's a tremendous 80s buddy cop style movie. It's got Tracy Morgan, Bruce Willis, and Stifler in it. How can it not be entertaining?
But that movie is better for the behind the scenes.
Well, when you know the story, it's fun. No, but the movie itself,
it's all right. It's all right.
We're going to agree to disagree on that one. That's a fun movie.
I don't dislike it, but knowing the behind the scenes, I'm like, oh, this could have been so much better if Bruce Willis wasn't a weird fucking, kind
of dick.
Yeah. So that kind of sucked. My biggest, here's funny because I have a Kevin Smith story, and it's a very me story too, because especially like you know me real well, so you'll know like, oh yeah, that's some bullshit that you would fucking totally do. 2004, me and my friends drove up for MegaCon, and this is before cons became like big. There was like very little, if any, cosplay. It was just more.
This is where he was just walking around.
Yeah, vendors
around.
And
no, but I mean, like, he didn't have long lines and I remember seeing him at a con, and he was like free and available all the time. Yeah.
So,
and I think it was MegaCon. It might have even been that same stupid.
It might have been, because I remember we were all we'd all walk through the con, and we're all sitting at we walk in the convention center, that big hallway, that big I don't know what you call it, before you go inside. There's like the big center waiting area where you buy your tickets and everything. Yeah. We're all just kind of standing there, and one of my friends had to go to the bathroom, so we're all just kind of chilling and talking about, how much money Marco was going to spend, because I already bought a Megatron and something else, because cons at that time were the only way I could pick up certain figures. It was the only way. Yeah. So I blew through $1,000 credit card that weekend. Not one of my prouder moments. And off to my side, I hear a bunch of people talking about Transformers. And at that time, I'm like wearing Transformers, like I'm the full Transformers nerd. And I was just like, I look over and they were wrong. And I was like, I'll go correct them. And I went over and kind of joined the conversation. We had this long, 5-minute conversation about, I think it was about mass shifting and some of the other characters in the show, that none of that's important. Although this is a nerd talk, so I guess I can just say character names, talking about size differences between the city pots and all that shit. And just a whole conversation, and, shook the dude's hand and his friends and shit, and it was cool. They we got to get going. Okay, cool, see you around, blah, blah, blah. And I walked back to my friends who were just staring at me. And I'm like, what? Like, did I drop something? I look back to make sure I didn't drop something. And my one friend's like, bro, did you just have a 5-minute conversation with Kevin Smith? I was like, what? He's like, that's fucking Kevin Smith. I'm like, no, that's not Kevin Smith. At the time, the only way you knew these people, because the internet, all that shit was still young and everything, only way you knew them was in their movies. And he doesn't look like Silent Bob in real life.
He does and he does.
Even though he is Silent Bob in real life.
If Silent Bob talked, you would have known it was Kevin Smith. But
and he only says a few lines, and at that time I only knew the Mallrats and Clerks and stuff, so he never had like long drawn out dialogues. And this is before Kevin Smith did all the speaking tours and all that nonsense that he would be known for years later. And even
just say it. You didn't know it was Kevin Smith.
I had no fucking idea that I had a 5-minute conversation with like Kevin Smith and some of the other VSQ people. No idea whatsoever, because their booth was the first booth when you walked in the con. It was like right there, and I don't think.
Yeah, I think I saw him when I saw him. It was years. It was before that. I think it was before they started launching like stuff. Yeah, I think he was like
figures. Yeah, they had launched their first wave of figures.
He didn't have all that stuff yet.
Yeah,
he was just kind of chilling. I think he was like kind of promoting maybe the second movie or something, or his third. I knew who he was, and I was like. And he was available, and I still was like, I don't know. Like, because I wasn't a huge Kevin Smith guy. I was like, oh, there he is over there, standing there at a table with nobody there, totally available to talk to for as long as I wanted to talk to him. And at that time, had no interest. Now I would talk his ear off about a lot of things, none of it being his stuff. But
I remember, and that's a great thing about conventions was you could have conversations with people that you would never have that access or just the moment with ever again. Like, I remember the fucking what's his face Space Ghost. He was just sitting at his booth, bored as fuck, he just started talking me and my friends' ear off.
But now it seems like all of those people. It seems like that's the level of celebrity has dropped because. All these people are making themselves available on social media.
Yeah.
You can, if you can act like a fucking proper person, create relationships with quote, famous, otherwise unattainable people.
Because you have...
On social media.
Yeah, because you have instant access to anybody now.
It's crazy.
Back then you didn't, and it's weird to say that. And
if you could break the ice if you find the right way to break the ice with someone, you could like eventually have a ongoing like ongoing discussion where you know the person really well at some point, and they're like they could be anyone from any walk of life, you know, whether it be a fucking actor or a fucking whatever.
It's definitely different.
But at that time it was
that dude.
There was no social media back in 2012.
It was crazy because then I spent the whole day going like I had this giant moment with someone who, if I fucking knew who I was talking to.
Yeah, but he appreciated talking to you because you didn't know who he was.
Yeah, I literally, you
were able to have a normal conversation because of that.
I think at some point later on in the day, we passed by the booth and he was signing autographs. And we just kind of waved to each other kind of thing. And it was just kind of cool. It's like, oh, that's cool. And that's when, like, I don't know what your moment was, but that was my moment.
No, that was it. I just saw him over there and I was like,
no, I mean, but this was my moment where I realized like, oh, like, yeah, they're just people.
Oh, yeah.
Because I hadn't yet met all the famous wrestlers and all that stuff. I hadn't really met anybody.
Well, that's what it was for me. When we were doing autographs in late '90s, early 2000s, where it was like you said with the wrestlers and not so much with the sports people. Like when we would do spring training and stuff, they still seemed a little bit like above. You know? But when you were with the wrestlers, because it wasn't just like getting the autograph; it was hanging out with them. We were like there we would make a 4-day trip, travel from a town to a town, be at the hotels with them, at the bars with them, hanging socially with these people. So, then you realize they're just fucking.
Yeah.
They're just
And some of them are deeply flawed.
yeah.
In a fun way. And some of them are deeply flawed.
I mean,
in an
it's funny.
unfun way.
It's like you're like, oh, we're hanging out with,
Yeah.
we're sitting at the bar talking and chilling with fucking David Flair, who then his girlfriend pops up next to him, and it's Stacy Keibler and yada yada yada, and then fucking 10, 15 years later, she's like dating George Clooney and shit. And you're like, yeah, but I know who the fuck she is. I had conversations with her, very down to earth, normal girl. And you're like, all right, this is like, it condenses your world. It takes everything from being like inconceivable stuff to like
it helps. Doing that kind of stuff helps take people off pedestals, which is very important.
There you go.
Which is very important.
There you go. And you know, if this guy has to wipe his ass after he shits, and they know this person, then then 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, or this case in my example, George Clooney.
Yeah,
I know he has to wipe his own ass. So it's like, yeah, okay, we're there.
George Clooney probably still has to wipe his own ass.
No, he probably has a bidet, but that's.
But you still got to do the clean wipe afterwards.
I don't know.
We have a bidet.
I think you just do the.
You don't want wet swamp. No,
you do the shimmy.
No, you don't do the shimmy. You got to do the cleanup wipe afterwards.
You walk around bottomless for half an hour and air dry.
Oh my god,
air dry.
Let's start talking about Loki before this becomes
air dry. There's a lot to talk about Loki.
There's a lot to talk about Loki because that first episode was a lot, and it covered a lot. It was like an hour long, right?
It's funny because you had to do a lot of, even though like in the Marvel, what are we 12, 13 years into like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've done a lot of character development with Loki because this is like rewound to the first Avengers movie. That a lot of that's been erased, and so it's a earlier version of him. But then like you actually get more character development out of him in this one episode.
Because he has to grow very quickly.
Right, but he shows you a lot. I think his acting range in this one episode is by far bigger than anything he's done in like this whole, like I said, 13 years. 10 years,
the
whatever
scene of him watching. By the way, everybody, spoiler heavy.
I'm not even fucking. Fuck these people if they don't realize that.
The scene of him watching the Loki we know go all the way up to the end of his death and everything. That was because he's escaped. He can't find a way out. He realized that fucking Infinity Stones are garbage here.
Well, let's slowly unpackage these things. But when he's watching his timeline, and they break that up into 2 parts, and he comes back after his attempted breakout. That the first part where he's like he kills his mom. Well, he doesn't kill her, but because of his actions, she dies. Mm-hmm. And like that's someone he cares for, and then it's almost like he realizes this forced him to realize a lot of things that really quickly that he had to come to over a longer period. Like when he sees his dad die, and he's with his brother, and when he's fighting alongside his brother, and the conversations his brother has with him, and all that stuff. It's like a really, and then you see his facial reactions to all that stuff. It's really cool. I love. My favorite part in this thing, like one of my favorite scenes, was when they're talking and like you get up until a certain point, Loki's still under the impression that he's like one of the top of the pecking order, and he's like this god, and he's gonna rule all of creation and stuff. And Owen Wilson, at one point, basically just explains to him how he is the Steve Lombardi of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Steve Lombardi, for wrestling, people don't know wrestling, he's the Brooklyn Brawler. And the Brooklyn Brawler was a very competent enhancement talent. He was the guy you could trust to put in the ring with someone to make someone look good. And he basically says to Loki, no, you're the guy that brings out the best in others. You're not great. You make other people great by being
terrible.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you bring out the best in them opposing you.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't say anything good about you. And he has to come to terms with that, but like, dude, just like basically calling him enhancement talent.
Yeah.
Like for a wrestling term that, for me, was like hilarious. And it was like true. You brought the Infinity Stones. I mean, I mean, there's this whole time thing is like they deep end you really fast on this. They're in the deep end of the pool like within seconds. They're just like none of that stuff works there. I guess his magic, the time stone, the infinity gems are like, yeah, these are paperweights and stuff. It's such a crushing, like, we just finished 10 years of build up to the infinity gems and they kill half the universe with them. They're like the all powerful things in their existence.
And here they're literally like paperweights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That character's great too, the desk guy.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked him a lot.
He's in a show that the couple of the Broken Lizard guys do that's like a fire department show.
Oh, I've heard.
And it's hilarious. Yeah. It's hilarious. It's basically, it's not Broken Lizard, but it's two of the guys from it. It's hilarious. That guy, he's one of the firefighters on it. So it was like fun to see a familiar face pop up.
Tara Strong is the voice.
Yeah, see, who's Tara Strong? That's a voice actor?
Harley Quinn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's very famous voice actress.
She's probably in Masters of the Universe, too.
Yeah. She's becoming like the Frank Welker, Frank Oz type person. She's literally in everything.
Right.
She's whatever voice, like a minor thing here. You'll always find Tara Strong.
Yeah. Well, that's good for her.
Yeah, no, awesome.
Well, you weren't with me and Mike. I think I had dinner with her once. We took her to, like, when I was working for SuperCon.
I can't even.
We took her for dinner one night after a con. Like, we went to like an Italian restaurant and whatever, and she was just like, I know she's a short little blonde lady. Other than that, I couldn't tell you a thing about her. It's not like she was performing for us while we were there.
Yeah.
So, but it was like a big dinner. Like, I don't know.
How many times did that happen?
What?
Where like you're just in the space around Mike at a SuperCon, you're talking to someone and they walk away and he tells you who they are and you're like, oh,
yeah,
that's who that person is. That happened a lot.
That, or you know who the person is, and you're like really amused by the way Mike treats them, like basically treats them like shit, or like all the ego and whatever's gone. He has a relationship with them, and it's like, like nobody else can talk to these people like this. Yeah. But anyway, back to the show. So, I mean, we could just start at the beginning. I mean,
very Iron Man right from the beginning.
I think they said that's supposed to be the spot where I think that debris is his armor. Like, there's like part of his armor is in that sand and stuff.
It might be.
I think it is. I think
it would be great.
I think it's a spot. And he shows up and he starts doing his Loki thing, and they fucking right out of the gate.
Who are you?
The time cops pop out, and you're like, there's no explanation of who they are, and they basically handle him with no problem. That slow motion scene with that
slow motion punch,
his
was
lips
the best
wiggling and whatever. But they were such an efficient job through the whole episode of like jamming as much information as possible
without it being overbearing or anything.
Without it, being or like overbearing or overwhelming is a better word for it. Like where you're just like, I can't process all this,
They give you moments to take it in,
and the comedy, like the amount of comedy in this, balanced with then like all these like sad moments and whatever. It's crazy. The whole procession before the title scene, the whole thing of like processing him in this like ancient, like this dated, like the colors. And
Did you get your ticket?
But that place looked like it was right out of like the early 70s.
I like the
60s.
the whole motif is amazing.
Yeah, the color schemes, those like rust colors and stuff.
The old typewriters and everything.
Well, it's definitely like maybe this is, you feel like these time people that created this whole time thing, these time lizards or whatever Loki called them, that they it's almost like that's when they did this, and it's just set in that stone now that this is even though like you look out the window, it's like this fucking future.
Maybe they just went, we need the least efficient office setting, and that's what appeared.
Yeah, like it's all like nobody's on computers. It's all fucking triplicate paperwork and stuff like that.
It's all very big government.
Yeah, but the animation thing is really great about explaining the time war.
I like
and
how
how there's only one timeline, and anytime anyone branches off of it, and they use the term a couple times. They don't use it in the animation, but that they pruning, like trimming a tree.
Yeah.
Branches. Get it? Timer. Yeah. So that stuff was really cool.
I like the one side note where like, this is a nightmare. That's a different apartment.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, that's cool.
So they almost hinting like maybe there's a Mephisto element because Nightmare has his own realm too.
Yep.
But that's
just another person's department.
Fucking red herring, man.
There's so many of those red. It's almost as if Marvel decided at some point they're like, we're never giving you Mephisto.
Well, now we're gonna fuck with you
forever,
like the stained glass window,
forever. And then the director's like, no, that was supposed to be Loki, with the horns and out of heaven and the whole ideology. And I'm sitting there like, no one would assume that in the first look. Yeah. not after. If we hadn't gotten Scarlet Witch beforehand, no one would have thought any different. But now that we have, you're doing this on purpose.
Yeah.
The idea that it's Loki doing all this, killing all these. That
it's like cops. Another version of him.
Yeah.
I guess they're hinting it's a female version. I think I've been reading that stuff.
Yeah, it could be any version of Loki.
No, but I think they've said we're going to see a female version.
That'd be cool.
I think we're going to see a lot of versions of him in this. I assume he eventually. I don't know if he's. By the end of this show, if he's going to be working for them, or if he's going to or if this is a temporary thing for him. But,
well, here's the thing. They've never shown Loki, hide, morph, or become anything other than another human. Or another like bipedal character.
But they've said he could turn into a snake.
Well, I was gonna say in the comics he does all kinds of shit.
Yeah,
but he hasn't done in the movies in the cinematic universe. He's yet to do anything beyond shapeshift into just another bipedal creature character or anything like that.
Right, but shapeshifting is different from like in the comics. There's a lot of times where he's kind of like sort of technically dying and being reborn. Because he's a god and he's immortal, that you come back, but then he comes back as a child version of himself or a female version of himself.
Or a horse.
Well, whatever. But I'm just saying, there in the comics, there was a run where he was a female, and there's a run where he was a child, and and he was like trying to, and the child was not the evil Loki. He was like a young kid trying to be good and stuff. Yeah. So very different incarnations of him. So I don't know if they're going to dip into all of those or none of those.
They threw the DB Cooper thing right out there.
See, it's funny. Like, I didn't know what DB Cooper was. And
you don't know the story about DB Cooper?
It happened before I was born.
Oh, happened before you were born. I love that story.
So, like, I don't know. Like, I never saw a movie about it. But so
I've seen so many documentaries.
But it got me to Google it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is clever that they took something like this and made it up.
Because they never found the guy.
Like technically a real life situation.
Yeah.
Where in the real world, a guy fucking hijacked a plane, held them up for $200,000, and they never caught him.
And even in the real story, he was that kind.
But wait, but he didn't jump out of the airplane.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did.
In it happened exactly the way it happened.
Except instead of parachuting,
the Bifrost.
Right, yeah.
They think the real DB Cooper did not survive in the wilderness, that he died very shortly after, but they never found much proof of either way. He just kind of... So it was great because, like, that's totally a Loki story that you could do.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I lost a bet.
Yeah.
And you brought all the characters in.
I didn't like... I think he said I was young.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that was like, what, 20 years ago? 30 years ago? 40 years ago? In the grand scheme of being a god, he wasn't very young. That line bothered me because it didn't gel. It's like I was young would refer to like,
how about
10 centuries ago.
How about Owen Wilson drinking Josta Cola?
Yeah. See, I watch a lot of like videos afterwards when I watch these shows. So since that was a real cola that only existed in the 90s,
5 years
in the 90s, I'm thinking, and that they make it sound like all these people that work at the Time Bureau were like created or something. I think they're all pruned variants. And that then they wipe their memory and they put them to work in the thing. So all these people are like timeline variants that they were like, instead of just destroying them or whatever, we can find a use for you. They wipe their memory of previous existence. Like the guy doesn't know what a fish is. and they said, I've been behind a desk my whole existence.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, that's a little weird. So I think like what happens is that you get quote pruned, which means basically like the Men in Black thing where you forget everything except it's your whole past, and then they put you to work here. So he probably came from the 90s and drank that stuff. Is what I'm thinking.
Let me ask you.
That's what I'm thinking.
Let me ask you. How quickly do they start teasing Kang the Conqueror?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they
They've only
I don't know if they tease it or if he just
they kind of already have
what?
one of those where are they? The fucking Guardians or whatever the fuck they were. The main three.
Yeah.
One of them looked like Kang.
They could be all three of him. The Immortus.
Oh.
Those could be the three versions of Kang from time.
They could be.
And those could be the three, they
What's
going to happen is obviously they literally in that animation thing in a mixed order within a sentence of each other said Multiverse of Madness.
Uh-huh.
Which is like they've like what's coming.
Yeah.
That this whole like that Scarlet Witch is going to bust this up or Loki fucks this up. I think and
it seems like a Loki thing to do.
Here's also what happened.
He is the god of mischief.
Someone, because everyone does better sleuthing than I could ever do, so why would I bother doing it? Someone saw an interview with Hiddleston that mentioned he made a reference to shooting Loki or being in costume of Loki at a time where they were not shooting Loki. And they're thinking that was for Spider-Man or for Doctor Strange. They're like, they were shooting one of those movies at that time.
What if
and so they haven't announced Loki's in those movies, but if this is going to result in all of that fallout, and he mentioned he was shooting in costume at a time after this had wrapped, that they accidentally tipped something off.
What if the next phase of Loki in the phase 4 of Marvel, it's just him trying to do good, but every time he does good, he starts the next big war or the next big thing. He's honestly trying to do good, but he's a god of mischief. And like Owen Wilson said, it's his nature. You can't fight your nature. You are what you are. And he's trying his best to do good, but he's just creating havoc for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And he brings in the Kang.
I think
brings in all this stuff.
Series is going to make this Loki the best Loki that Loki could be. I think this is going to, whatever's happening within this storyline, like all these other potential Lokis are going to all have these flaws and like kind of like the Scorpion and the Frog story kind of thing. And this one's going to, because he's dealing with the other ones, is going to create the best version of Loki, whatever that ends up being. I don't know if that ends up being a good guy or a bad guy, because the best version of Loki may not be a good guy.
I do like how Mobius goes out of his way to let you know. It's like, don't think of the TVA as good or bad.
Right.
We don't do that here. That's not our job.
I like where they're like, he blames the Avengers, and they're like, oh no, the Avengers were supposed to do all that.
You're the one, just you. So it makes me think. I'm like, we're gonna find some fucked up shit about this TVA at some point.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure. He's going to have to fucking like, like whatever it is, like unfuck what they're fucking, or at least give everyone the freedom. That's why I think we're getting the multiverse back.
Yeah.
I think Loki's restoring the multiverse.
He's seen some jacked up shit about that.
It would have been interesting. The only thing I regret, and of course, this isn't the Snyder Cut, and this isn't Endgame, and this show has its own budget, but it would have been really cool when they were doing the animation and they were talking about the multiverse war. If they showed it like when they were talking about the first time they repelled Darkseid. And you saw, and they just showed you all these fucking Marvel characters that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Like for brief moments in this like little montage of this tiny little bit of a multiverse war, whether it's 3 different versions of Captain America fighting each other or something cool. But obviously that's probably was unrealistic budget wise to do.
At this point, however, now that we've introduced this whole time variance and everything else, now you're like, well, now you can literally bring back anybody at any time. Like,
well, that's why I'm like thinking that I don't think Scarlett Johansson ever said she was interested in being done with the character.
So I've never heard the same. I've never heard
It's
it.
weird for them to be making movies of her character that are all going to just be prequels. I think maybe I thought there was a scene that looked like a scene on that planet that they sacrificed. She sacrificed.
There may have been
from in the trailer.
Yeah.
I thought there was a scene where it almost looked like he was sitting there talking to her, but all that could be red herring. But I feel like yes, that like a character like that should be able to be revived through some shenanigans with this. Did someone else caught something that I don't know if you saw?
Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
That
like in the background, one of those time doors opens and someone's hauling Peggy Carter through. Yep. And you're like, see, this is where it's kind of confusing because it's like there's supposed to only be one timeline. That's it. That's what they're saying here. There's one timeline.
Which is why the TVA is lying to you about something.
So
which is what Loki's going to find out.
How does that... Now, the Peggy Carter thing could be a branch from any kind of thing, but I've always been a little like unclear on the Captain America thing at the end of Endgame, going back and living with her, and them saying it's always supposed to happen that way. So when she's got the Alzheimer's and he visits her and she's like on her deathbed and she's talking about the family and whatever, was that with Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
She just doesn't I've always assumed that. I've always assumed that was Steve's kids.
Okay.
And that's why you never see a mention of who she married. You never hear her mention her. You know she had a family. You've seen pictures of the kids, but you never got to mention the husband. That was the big thing for the longest time. And we're all like, well, who the fuck did you marry? And then at the end of the Endgame, it was like, oh.
Right. Now, in like, if you didn't watch these things probably, but in the Peggy Carter show, she kind of had a sort of a relationship with one of the other like cops or agents there. And then you thought maybe that's who she ends up with, but then in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they do a clever thing where they grab him out of the timeline and he joins them.
Oh wow!
So you're like, oh, it probably isn't him then. And yeah, it gets convoluted. But then you're like, but is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. canon? You know, and then is even Peggy Carter, which I think the Agent Carter show, I think they respect that as part of it because they even took the Jarvis that was with Stark during that show because she was with
is that the Jarvis that was in Endgame?
Yeah,
then
it's the same actor.
Then it's got to be canon.
Yeah. It was just
it's got to be canon.
Yeah,
I don't think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is canon.
Probably not, but they plucked that character out.
Yeah.
So it's a little weird. Or you could just be like, well, that's a different timeline, but supposedly no other timelines exist. So it gets a little confusing, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I mean, obviously they're trying to establish the new rules now. And so the new rules right now after Endgame, which even like, I think the Russos were even like arguing with the writers and disagreeing with the writers whether that was an alternate timeline or not. And I don't remember who was on which side. I think the Russos were like alternate timeline, and the writers were like main timeline. With Steve Rogers going back.
I think it's main timeline.
I know you think, but I'm saying that literally the writers and directors were arguing about that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was officially settled on, but if they're saying one timeline in Loki, then I guess it is one timeline.
And he just sat back. He knew how all the events were going to unfold. And he knew where he had
to
be.
The weird thing is that like these kids with this half serum kind of thing going through them, it's like are we just kind of ignoring all that? That there's like this line of like Steve Rogers kids maybe out there making half super soldier kids and quarter super soldier kids and none of them are like actively involved in anything.
I was thinking about that because you're thinking like, well, Steve Rogers pops out.
We're getting so in the weeds.
Yeah.
We're so out of the Loki thing.
But you know what? You know what? Here's the great thing of Marvel. Marvel will introduce something. They might wait 10 years, but they'll call back to it. We will find out about all that.
It'll be point. Like some guy will just show up.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, I'm the grandson of Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter. And everyone will go, Oh.
I'm like, well, it's nice to meet you. And then he throws a car, and you're like, oh.
Right.
Oh, well, here's your shield.
Right.
No, you can do that kind of stuff because at this point,
that'll be the second season of Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Will be like someone with a legitimate claim to the fucking shield going, no, that's my dad's.
Yeah.
I want it back, or my granddad's.
Yeah. You can do some pretty cool stuff, man. So, but that's a great thing with Marvel. Like even like Loki wasn't meant as anything other than a foil to Thor. He was really liked. And they used him as the main villain in the Avengers movie,
which makes sense because he was the reason in the comics that the first episode of the first issue of the Avengers, they get together to fight Loki. He creates the Avengers in like the official Marvel comics. So it would only make sense that they would form together to oppose Loki in the fucking movie.
It's just like Tom Hiddleston took off, and they were like, "All right, he's super popular. We're going to keep him around." And now,
well, it's not even so much we'll keep him around. It's really these actors want to stick around.
Oh yeah, which Sebastian Stan came out, and she's like, "I'll grow old doing this shit. Yeah. We're good."
Yeah. He might change his mind as his like. There's a different. You're more willing to be involved when your parts are minor than when like it's like a Robert Downey or something where it's like
you're carrying the franchise.
Not only are you carrying a franchise, but there's no time to do anything else.
Yeah.
And a guy like that at least is in demand to do other stuff.
Well, maybe if the paycheck respects the responsibility, I think he'll be all right.
I think all the paychecks are respecting the responsibilities these days. I think once you're established, once you've done a thing or two with them, and they're like, we want you to be a continuing thing, when you get paid.
When Disney opened the Avengers campus over in Disneyland, California, and during the opening ceremony, they brought out Anthony Mackie, and he gave the...
There were a couple of...
Yeah, there were a couple of Avengers
Paul
there.
Rudd was there.
Yeah, there were a couple of Avengers, but he came out and he handed the shield to their Captain America. I was like, that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like, there's... And the whole Spider-Man thing they have, because now they've got the animatronic stunt dummy that does the swinging for Spider-Man the way they set it in. And I'm like, wow, like their shows and everything, like that's really cool how they brought these characters. Because, like, dude, as a 7-year-old kid, you thinking you've seen fucking Spider-Man, man.
Yeah.
And that's fucking awesome that we can do that shit now. I heard it's really fucking cool, but I just thought back to that. And I was like, if Loki keeps being brought up, man, I really think he's going to be a big part of this next phase. And that this show brings us into that.
Yeah, I don't know how. I don't know how.
I was waiting for the whole time cop thing. I was like, because you were like, Loki's going to be a time cop, because I didn't fucking know anything about this show. And just from the first episode, I'm like, it started to go that way, or I'm like, oh, Ben's right. But then it goes, wait, they're going to do something different here.
They might, but it might be with him working for them.
Yeah.
He's obviously he's being recruited to stop another version of himself.
Yeah.
Which version of that we don't know yet, and why they're doing this we don't know. But obviously they're trying to fuck with time, the timeline.
I want those sticks. Those.
They're trying to fuck with the timeline.
Whatever those sticks are that the TVA have, that make you go incinerate. The incinerate sticks. Can I get one?
It seemed a little reminiscent of the one that
Demolition Man.
No. Of the one who used to melt a guy in Ragnarok.
Oh, Ragnarok, yeah.
I forget what he called it. He called it something kind of like the dissolve stick or something like that. Yeah. Liquefy stick or something.
I kept getting reminded.
She was like, she handed him it for something else. He's like, no, we don't use the whatever stick for this. It's like.
It just reminded me of Demolition Man because they kind of had the same sound and vibe to them.
I felt like either they knew really early on that Owen Wilson was going to be playing this role, and literally either included him in writing every line for himself, or left every line for him generally this is what we want you to say, but. Because every line was basically Owen Wilson ad-libbing. It was. I don't feel like any of that was scripted.
It was so good.
Like he was playing. It didn't feel like he was playing a character. It felt like he was playing himself.
Yeah. Is it his nose, or he's wearing a prosthetic? Or
no, his nose is fucked up.
God damn.
His nose has always been busted up like that.
I for some reason didn't think it was ever that bad.
Whatever lighting was on him,
Yeah.
really accentuated.
Maybe they
fucked
do
up his
that on
nose is.
purpose too. Maybe he requested it. He's like, I want the worst lighting on this face.
I don't know, but yeah, his nose is a fucking train wreck. It's always been though.
Yeah, no, dude, I'm trying to like think. There's so much that happened in this fucking episode.
Yeah,
man.
see, like a lot of it's just like really just like fill in the like give you as much as possible in this first episode, but it's not like, I mean, you know, like when they're in France, it's just a lot of funny stuff. Like they all, like these people speak every single goddamn language, and you know, he talking to a kid in French, and you learn a lot about how things work really quick. Like they're talking about pruning or this, that, or the other thing. What was a reset? You know, their terms. You know how this time thing works really quickly.
Yeah, we didn't know. We're comic book fans. We had no fucking idea what we were seeing. So to be able to, like, 15 minutes in and go, oh, all right, cool.
I was just thinking about Owen Wilson. He's like, man, I'm always. It's like I'm always looking up to you. It's like the way it's supposed to be. You know, it was like such an Owen Wilson like weird line. It's like, it was like perfect. Like I felt like every line he said in that show was perfect. Like,
yeah.
Perfectly Owen Wilson.
It was of all the series that have come out so far, it was the best first episode.
I feel like he's gonna have another like that. The lady that he, the time cop that apprehended him and then he bested later in the episode.
Oh yeah.
That I feel like that's not the last time they're gonna clash.
No.
That they're gonna have some more altercations like that. It's funny how Loki like learns. It is so clever that he learns how it works really, like and like. Was able to like he could have gotten out of there. I think he just kind of gave up. He's like he found out the way the world works.
Yeah,
and like he's never good. Like being king of space don't mean shit.
Yeah,
you know.
I think he realized when I think the moment was when he saw that the Infinity Stones aren't even good enough for currency.
Well, then
and he was
like,
just like, well,
he stopped running.
Yeah.
He just walked out. He's looking at things. Goes, is this the greatest power? Is this the greatest power? Yeah, and he felt small. Like, you could see him feeling small.
And then Owen Wilson's like, oh, you didn't try to escape with the cube? It's like, I did, in fact, several times.
Yeah.
And just...
Doesn't work.
Yeah. And you see him, like, just get defeated so quickly.
But in this show, he... Not only he gets defeated, but then he goes back and he sees his own death. And the death of his father and his relationship with his brother. And those are things that I don't think he imagined could be possible, but that he wanted.
Yeah.
But wouldn't admit he wanted. And then he also understands how insignificant he is in the grand scheme of things, and like all of his ambitions don't mean shit anyways.
Yeah. All
you want to rule.
Yeah.
And then he even like basically is so self-aware of himself at that point that he's like, I don't enjoy hurting people, but I'm insignificant and I want to feel bigger.
Yeah.
You know? When he has that, it's crazy. It's crazy. They just like
all the character building so subtly,
so accelerated, and yet you don't feel it at all.
No,
and you don't feel overwhelmed. You're not over informed where you forget half of it. It's like it was done perfectly.
It was done better than Thor learning humility in the first Thor movie.
Well, let me just say those first two Thor movies aren't the greatest of the fucking.
They're also not the worst.
No, but the second one, don't you think Thor 2 is kind of one of the weakest movies, the least memorable, where you're like, what happened here?
But it's funny as time goes on, we get more callbacks to Thor 2 than I thought we would.
I think they're just stubborn and are like, fuck you, we're making this important.
You're talking to someone who enjoyed the movie. It's not the greatest.
I
movie,
didn't hate it,
yeah.
but going back, you're like, if this movie never happened, nothing changes.
No, that's true. That's very true. And it was a complete misuse of the elves, the dark elves. But
I feel bad for Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah,
because
he thought that was gonna be like.
Well, yeah, at the time, and he was kind of on a run. He was doing G.I. Joe, and he was doing some other stuff. Whatever, he was getting all these roles.
God, that G.I. Joe,
and none of it really fucking propelled him. It's like one of those. You know what he was? He had a run, just like Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah.
All these like fucking movies, you're like,
and nothing.
Where it's gonna be like, man, this is gonna fucking this one and that one, and I'm gonna have such a huge career, and they all three not because of them, but man, they just didn't get anywhere.
And then you got Tom Holland, who just one day auditioned for Spider-Man, didn't think he was going to get it.
Yeah, but
and now he's Spider-Man for life.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying, like, fate.
But nobody's
works.
going to see his other movies, and he's not like
absolutely not. I couldn't even tell you another
Right.
a Tom Holland movie.
Right, I've seen one on Netflix. It was pretty good. But my point was more like you like Eccleston even had the falling out with Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Way back in the day, so he's had like a rough career. I mean, I remember him way back in like 20. You probably didn't see this movie, 28 Days Later. I've
never seen it, but I know it. I know it.
Yeah. He's the guy in charge at the military base.
Yeah.
He's like a big part of the movie. So I've seen him forever and stuff, and I just feel like his career didn't ever launch the way it was supposed to.
But
he was even like, I think he was even in, what was that show, Heroes? Was he in that?
I don't think
was he the guy that was in The Invisible Guy? I think that was him. But yeah, it's just like, or maybe I'm mixing shows. But anyway, he's had one of those like careers where you're like, he keeps popping up and stuff, and you're like, oh, this would be a great role if this movie was good. You know, this would have propelled you if anyone saw this. So I feel bad. He's had a lot of like stuff in the sci-fi and this kind of genre. Anyway, the Loki. What else? What else did there talk about it? I mean, I just thought it was like really fucking cool.
No, it was, and you know what? It was the quality of it was just.
Yeah.
Didn't it feel like, wow, this is like movie quality, like everywhere around.
I felt like all three of them were. It's just that like it's where the money's spent. I mean, on WandaVision, they're on like, it's supposed to look like TV sets and things like that. But when it goes big, it goes big.
Yeah, that's true.
And then in Falcon and Winter Soldier, that opening scene with the helicopters, they didn't go fucking cheap, you know?
No,
it's
you're
just
right.
where it's spent. And that movie and that show also had a lot of location shoots.
Yeah.
And so the money spent elsewhere. In this one, it's spent.
Is it like, so what is that now? Is it TVA? Is it the Planet Mobius? I don't know
I don't know where that is.
Yeah. It's just like, you know what it reminded me of a lot? I was like, this is what a live action Jetsons would look like. You mean the like decor and stuff. Yeah, the buildings, how they go into the sky and everything. That's how I imagine live action Jetsons.
I might go look into finding out in the comics, reading some of this, because I remember this stuff popping up every now and then a little bit, maybe in the Fantastic Four or somewhere, but I vaguely remember this time variant authority or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I had very little to call back on.
Yeah, I don't remember, so I might like Google and go read some stuff today.
Yeah,
because I'm a little curious. Like, just like you said, on like, is this, where are they? Are they in a interdimensional pocket? Are they on a planet? Where are you know what I mean? Because Legends of Tomorrow had like basically the same thing the first season or two, where they were policing time and fixing kind of the same idea, and they had like an office somewhere like on Earth, in a building. So
very Quantum Leap-esque.
A little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that to it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I just know that I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for episode 2.
Yeah.
Which is Wednesdays, which is weird.
Yeah, they moved to Wednesdays. I think. Well, I don't think. Well, here's the thing. I don't think they want 2 things on the same day, and they still have the Bad Batch coming out on Fridays. So they want to have those 2 things. Like why? For whatever reason, it's like, why have people watching 2 things? Let's have them coming to our app on Tuesday. They want returns to their app, so come on Wednesday, come on Friday.
They probably tried it with Mighty Ducks and Winter Soldier Falcon on the same day, because those dropped both on the same day, and they probably realized like, oh, it didn't work out so well.
And maybe a lot of people that are casual, like people that don't watch 4 hours of TV a night are like, it's one show. Which one is it?
Yeah.
You know, so on Wednesday you get Loki, on Friday it's, and again, not that like it's the same exact audience, especially it's Star Wars, but it's the cartoon. So, you know, like a lot of people are like, I'll watch live action stuff. I was like that, but I ended up watching The Bad Batch anyways. It's all right. I mean, you know, you could tell they're like definitely world building. They're expanding the Filoni-verse, you want to call it?
Yeah, because he's basically stepped into those shoes.
Filoni and Favreau. So that side of Lucasfilm that's fighting with the other side, I think is winning with all the stuff they're creating and building.
Because people actually care.
Right. The people watching it, the fans are being treated with respect by the side of the fucking creative. So that show's good. It's not like what I'm interested in, like a rogue bunch of clones after the Clone War, where they haven't been reprogrammed to be like mindless soldiers because they're defective clones.
No Order 66 for those guys.
No. Have you watched any of it?
Not The Bad Batch.
Yeah. Yeah, basically like whatever. They're all like the Order 66 basically turned them all into mindless soldiers. So the Bad Batch means they're a bad batch of clones. They're all like kind of they put them all in their own little company. So the Order 66 didn't take because they're not they were bad off the production line.
Yeah, I don't think too about being bad off the production line.
But it seems like they're going to introduce some interesting ideas that might kind of branch into like live action stuff as well.
Listen, Filoni and Favreau know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah. They may, like, even this one character, like, in the Bad Batch, they're running around with like a child clone. It's supposed to be a clone like them, but it's like a girl. And she's blonde. But she has that same, I guess they're New Zealand. You know, because it's based on, all of them are still based. I wonder if that actor that plays
Tamaria, whatever his name is.
The dude that's playing Boba Fett right now. I wonder if he gets paid every time they do a fucking character based on his appearance. And is he doing voices still for them?
I think that he's in a very financially advantageous position with Disney right now.
For sure is now that he's reprised the role of Boba Fett.
And I think that they're giving him all that love.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that if you sat down and talked to him about it, his words would be like, "I am not complaining right now."
Right. Well, I didn't say he's complaining, but I just didn't know if he was getting paid.
Well, by the way,
every time there was a clone that had his likeness.
Here's a dude. He played fucking Jango Fett in the movie that rarely was ever called back to. He did some voiceover stuff, but the character never really got any love or anything like that. Now all of a sudden, he is everywhere.
Yeah.
How weird does that work out like that?
Yeah.
Good for him, man. And he congrats to him because he did the impossible for me. He made me legitimately respect the Boba Fett character. Because
he didn't do it.
I fucking hated that character for so long.
Well, because of the way they...
Because the only things he ever did in the movie was fail to ferry Han and get eaten.
But yeah, but in the holiday special, he was kind of cool.
Oh, yes.
The animated thing.
That's true. But live action, we didn't get shit.
Yeah.
But then we got Boba Fett, and I went, all right, Mandalorian.
So basically, this clone, I guess, is off the same DNA, but it's a child, not a full grown, and it's a girl, and it's blonde, but it talks the same as them, and I guess it's from the same genetic batch. So I don't know what's going to be special about that clone, but obviously there's something very special about it, and that's the whole. I think they're being hunted down because they have that girl with her. But they haven't really explained a lot of that.
I'll eventually give it a look.
It's fine. It's not. Yeah. I'm not a huge Star Wars guy unless it's good Star Wars. So this is a cartoon's a stretch for me, but whatever. I guess I'm getting sucked into watching cartoons between this and Masters of the Universe and whatever else we got coming down the pipe. The What If series, I guess.
That's right. That comes out at some point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, shit, man.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else.
You just want to go.
I do.
All right. Well, that's fine. I'm kind of hungry. And
I got a whole garage waiting for me.
oh yeah, you're gonna do some activities, some hobbies.
Some airplane building. Yes, sir.
All right.
All right, everybody. Have a good weekend. Or actually, this drops on Tuesday, so have a good rest of your week. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.